Welcome, and thank you for joining us for our college planning webinar. My name is Jill Rothenberger, and I'm the VP of Consumer Lending for Dupaco, and I will be the moderator for the webinar. Joining me to present the webinar is Denise Burmeister with CU Student Choice. Dupaco has partnered with CU Student Choice to meet our members' needs for funding the cost of higher education through Dupaco's Extra Credit Student Loan. As Dupaco is a member-owned credit union, our unique cooperative structure means that Dupaco operates in your best interest. Our goal is to provide our members with financial education to help them make better financial decisions. Providing this education to our members is important to Dupaco, especially on the topic of funding post-secondary education. This can be one of the biggest financial decisions a student makes, and we want to make sure you have the information and tools necessary to make smart financial decisions and keep your debt as low as possible. Before we get started, I would like to cover just a couple of housekeeping items. As a courtesy to all attendees, we will have all phone lines muted during the webinar. Please know that you can ask questions during the webinar by using the questions box on the webinar toolbar. We will be holding a Q&A after the presentation so we can address any questions you submitted. Finally, this webinar will be recorded and posted to our website this week. We will also email all webinar attendees a direct link to the recording once available. And now I will turn it over to Denise.
Thank you, Jill, very much. I'm excited to share with you information today on how to prepare, pay, and stay in college. The presentation is titled that because it's really about making those preparations for getting into college, paying for it without taking on extra debt, and then staying in college. So really having that full college career approach. So when you think about the university that your student is going to attend and how you're going to pay for that, being able to get from the freshman year to graduation. So let's jump right into the content. One of the things you'll note about higher education preparation is that the earlier you start, the better. So really, even before high school, you can start looking at opportunities for that student to be involved in extracurricular activities, volunteer and community service, those things that are going to be important when they're filling out that college application. And while it's great to be active in the community and volunteering, it's even better if those activities correlate to the intended major that that student will be studying. So if you know that you want to be a nurse and you're going to be applying for admission to a college of nursing, then maybe your career, your volunteer community service is related to that, because that will help that admissions counselor see that, yes, this person's been interested in this career field for a very long time. Always, of course, creating those good study habits. You want to maintain the best possible grade point average that you can, and start saving money right away. Anything that you're able to save in advance of getting to college is money that you potentially will not have to borrow and therefore will not have to pay interest on. So make sure you save even as little as $5 a week can make a big difference once you're actually at college and thinking about getting a student loan. Your freshman and sophomore year, you're going to continue to really explore those career interests. I would recommend that all high school students go visit their counselor. Many of the college counselors at their high school are going to have information on different career fields. Many of them have access to diagnostic tests that students can take to help identify areas of interest or areas where they're strong, and could identify careers that really relate to those strengths that they have. So really think about exploring career options during the freshman and sophomore year, so that during your junior and senior year, your course load can be directed towards those. And again, study habits, saving money, that remains true for each and every year. During your junior year, you're really going to start to ramp up for the ACT, SAT, really start to think about which scholarships you might want to apply for, which ones you're going to be eligible for. I highly recommend that you attend as many of these types of events as you possibly can, whether that's financial aid nights at your high school, community events. The more you attend, you'll glean a little bit of information from each one, and the financial aid picture starts to come into focus. So really do attend as many of these types of events as you possibly can. College prep courses are a huge help if you want to really get into a school that has some pretty rigorous admissions requirements. For both college prep courses, tutoring for ACT, SAT, really look at it in a cost-benefit approach. Is what I'm paying for this college prep course, or what I'm paying in, hourly rates for a tutor, what does that translate to in larger scholarships, more scholarships? Am I investing in something that's going to help me get into the college I'm really dreaming about, or is this going to help me gain additional scholarship money? So really look at it in those terms. You're also going to want to maintain that good study habits so your GPA is high. And when we look at what college admissions counselors look at, you want to make sure that that course load that you're taking is a rigorous one. The one thing I'll mention on here you may not be familiar with is College Goal Sunday. So if the Super Bowl is happening, College Goal Sunday is usually right before or right after that. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to meet with financial aid professionals. They can help you with filling out the free application for federal student aid, referred to here as the FAFSA, and that financial aid assistance can be invaluable because they can give you lots of tips for things to know as you go through not only the admissions process, but the financial aid process. So helpful things to do both your junior and senior year. All right, so let's talk about what we want everyone to first do. First of all, whatever you've saved is awesome. Secondly, you want to get as many scholarships as possible. So scholarships are referred to frequently as free money because they're just that. They're awarded to the student and they do not have to be repaid. They're going to be awarded for a variety of reasons, the most common being academic merit or athletics, but there is a scholarship for everyone. So please don't let your student be deterred. If they don't have a 4.0 or they're not a star athlete, there is a scholarship for everyone. There are scholarships for only left-handed people. There are scholarships for people with a grade point average no higher than 2.0. So you really want to be out there actively looking for as many scholarships as you possibly can. We've listed here for you the most popular, the most reputable search engines. Your student can go to these engines, complete a profile about themselves. So they might say, hey, I'm a junior in high school. My intended major is engineering. My hobbies are 4-H and volleyball. And through these search engines, there will be scholarships identified for future engineering majors or people who are interested in volleyball. And they'll send an alert to your student saying, hey, we found this scholarship you might be interested in. They'll provide a link. Your student clicks on the link for more information. And frequently, they can apply right online from the link the search engine has provided. So very worthwhile to have your students sign up for these search engines. If they're more of an app person, there's even an app now available at the iPhone and Android store. So do take advantage of all of those scholarship searches. The resource that could be invaluable to you, again, is your high school guidance counselor. So while the search engines are going to find those nationally or more prevalent scholarships, your high school guidance counselor can oftentimes provide information about more local scholarships. They keep lists of scholarships previous students have been awarded. Many times local organizations will reach out to them, so your Kiwanis clubs, your Rotary clubs, and they'll make that high school guidance counselor aware that, hey, we have a $500 scholarship, here's our criteria. So by checking in with that high school guidance counselor, you can get that information. So make it a point to reach out to your guidance counselor as well to find out about more local scholarships. All right, so some tips and tricks for scholarships. First of all, you want to follow all the instructions. I know that seems very basic, but if a scholarship committee receives many applications, they're not going to look at every single application. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to go through and throw out any scholarship applications where the instructions weren't followed. So if that application for the scholarship said must be completed in blue ink and you completed it in black, they're just going to toss, because that's their first way to weed out applicants. So make sure you follow all of those instructions. Use reference letters. This is a great way to help that scholarship committee know more about your student. So we've included in some of the supplemental materials that you can download after the webinar brag sheets for your student to complete about themselves, for others in their life to complete about that student. Because maybe your coach knows that your student is a real team player, that they're ready to get in there and help when others are, tired. But they may not know something that your pastor knows, that your student is a huge volunteer service provider, that they're, at the soup kitchen every other weekend. So providing that information to those people who can write reference letters for you helps them see the more well-rounded student, all the aspects of your student. So use those reference letters for any scholarships, because it can make a difference. Highlight your community involvement, your charity work. Those are important. But don't overlook the fact if your student has a part-time job. It's been proven over and over, students who work during school and college do better than students that don't work. So if you have a part-time job, make sure you highlight that. And then, invest the time and energy and effort to really search for those scholarships. So I like to tell students, if you spend 50 hours looking for a scholarship and you get one $1,000 scholarship, you made $20 an hour. What part-time job is going to pay you $20 an hour, tax-free, and you can do it in your pajamas on the couch? So be aggressive. Search for as many scholarships as you possibly can. And then finally, be aware of scams. Unfortunately, there are a lot of scam sites, people who are going to offer to guarantee you a scholarship if you pay their $199. Scholarship searches should be free. So use your high school guidance counselor, use those search engines, make sure that you don't get taken in being promised that you're going to be guaranteed scholarships if you pay a certain fee. There are a lot of resources available to you for which you're not going to have to pay. All right, other scholarship tips and tricks. So you want to make sure that you take advantage of any scholarships offered in your state. So frequently your state will have scholarship money that can be awarded for, again, a variety of reasons. Could be academics, could be the county from which you graduated high school. So make sure you're in touch with any of those state-based programs. Applying for too few scholarships. Again, think of it as the part-time job for the student. The more money they can get in scholarships, the less money they potentially have to borrow and pay interest on. One of the things, too, I would highlight is that your scholarship search, we see a lot of vigorous activity right before the freshman year in college, but the scholarship search should continue into their sophomore year in college, junior, senior year in college. Many scholarships are only available to college students working in their major. So that would be someone typically in their junior year of college. So don't give up the scholarship search too early. Continue to look for those free dollars even while the student's in their junior and senior year of college. Make sure you pay attention to those deadlines. Again, the early bird gets the worm, and keep up that search. All right, so we know the first order of business is to find as much free money as possible. Secondly, where am I going to use this free money? Which college is going to be right for me? These are some of the items that you really should consider when looking at choosing a college. First and foremost being, are they an accredited institution? You don't want your student to go through 4 years of college and then find out that employers or graduate schools don't consider their degree legitimate because it was from a university that wasn't accredited. So this is critically important. Check to see, are they offering federal student aid? What are the financial resources for this college? Do I meet the admissions requirements? This is really important. Most admissions offices, their web pages will tell you what criteria they're looking for, or they'll share statistics about what students who have been admitted, what were the average ACT scores, or what was the average grade point average. You want to make sure you're applying to schools where you have a reasonable chance for admission. So I pick on Harvard a little bit, but it's because they're constantly in the news. Harvard has disclosed that they've made over $4 million in rejected applications. So when you're applying for college and they're charging you a fee to apply, don't want to waste that money. So make sure you're looking at, am I close to the admissions requirements? If this is your dream school, absolutely you're going to apply. But if your ACT score is 8 points off, that might be an issue unless you have other extenuating factors that could get you admitted. So know what those admissions requirements are. The other thing is, ask for an application waiver. So if you're going to apply for admission and they're going to charge you to apply, ask for a waiver. You want to say, hey, I really want to apply to your school. Do you have any application waivers? The worst that can happen is they'll say, no, they're all gone for this year and you'll have to pay the application fee. But in many cases, you can get that admissions application fee waived. Even better, if you're able to do a campus visit, then most times they're going to hand you an application waiver as part of the tour. So if you can, try not to have to pay that fee. Types of programs, is this a school that's really known for what I'm going to be studying? What's their job placement rate? You don't want to have to move back in with your parents after college, so think about those things. And then their graduation statistics. And you may be thinking, okay, this is great, but where am I going to find all of this information? This looks like a lot of work and research. Well, the U.S. National Center for Education Statistics has made it very easy for you. So you can visit their website, the College Navigator, and research all of these data points for all the schools that you're considering. So once you're on the site, you're going to search for schools that you're interested in, and you're going to be able to see, are they accredited? What is their cost of attendance? How much financial aid are they awarding? What are the admissions requirements? What ACT, SAT scores did students who were admitted come in with? Are they a commuter campus? So you might not know that from a web search, but if you see that 80% of their students are part-time, then your student who wants to have the live on campus experience, that might not be the college for them. As a parent, I would be really interested to see what the crime statistics are for that campus. So a lot of really good, helpful information available from the College Navigator. I've shown for you here, this is an example for University of Iowa. You have a link to their main page. From that main page, you also can get to their admissions office, the financial aid office. These are important pages to visit as well, because they're going to give you an idea of what it's going to take to get into the school, and then once they're admitted, what sort of financial aid that university is going to be able to offer. So please, in addition to the main page, always visit your admissions page and your financial aid page. Critical piece of information you will find on both of those, the application deadline. So you don't want to miss being admitted to your school that you're dreaming about because you missed the application deadline. Or you might be admitted, but you missed the deadline for financial aid and you're not awarded as much money as you could have been had you applied before the deadline. So make sure you know those deadlines and meet them. The other thing I'll point out here for you, you see student population, 30,844 students. Almost 24,000 of those are undergraduates. So when you look at that sort of information, you're like, oh yeah, that's interesting information, But think about how that relates to your student. So if your student's going to be a freshman, population of almost 24,000, it's very likely some of their general education courses might be in a big auditorium with 200 or 300 other students. Is your student the kind of student who's going to get up out of bed, go to class at 8 a.m. if the professor has no idea whether they're in the auditorium or not? So think of that information, how it relates to your student and what might be the best fit for them. All right, so let's talk about, you've researched this university, you're very interested, and now you want to know, how much is this going to cost me? Well, the nice thing about the College Navigator is it gives you 4 years worth of expenses. You can see, is the cost at this school trending upwards? Is it relatively stable? You don't want to go in as a freshman and then find out your junior year that costs have increased by 20%. So this gives you a better feel for how much cost is going to increase. The thing that really jumps out at me here, in-state tuition and fees for University of Iowa this year, under $9,000. That's phenomenal. But when you look down at room and board, over $10,000. So it's actually going to cost you more to live on campus than it is to attend classes. So oftentimes room and board is a little bit of sticker shock, how much it's going to cost to actually live on campus. So look at each line item, look at potential increases to see, is this potentially a good fit for our student and family? All right, so we know what it's going to cost. Now, how do we pay for it? So financial aid statistics are also included for you. So you can see 88% of students received some type of aid. The one that we want to see everybody getting, the grants and scholarships, which don't have to be repaid. And then you can look on down to see the other types of aid that were given to this student population. Really noteworthy here. So their total grant and scholarship aid on the far right at the top was a little over $37 million. Like, yay, that's a nice healthy number. But when you look down, 1, 2, 3, 5 lines, you can see that 32 million plus of that 37 was institutional money. This is why it's critically important to go to the admissions office page, the financial aid office page, and find out when is the institutional deadline for financial aid. So you're going to be filing your FAFSA for the federal aid programs. You can file as early as October 1st, the year before they're going to be going away to college. But you need to know what's the institution's deadline for applying as well, because you don't want to miss that and lose out on the pool of $32 million that the institution has to award. And then you can see finally here, how many students had to get loans and the total amounts for those as well. So really good information on the College Navigator. While I don't have it here for you, you can actually do side-by-side comparisons. You could get down to, top 3 or 4 schools and then look at them side by side to see, which might be the best fit. All right, so let's apply to this college. We've, reviewed thoroughly University of Iowa. We went for a campus visit. We know this is the school for us. What is that admissions officer going to be looking at? So the first thing is, did you apply by deadline? We again ask for that application waiver. And then this is the criteria that the admissions office is going to look at. This is provided to us by the National Association of College Admissions Counselors, and they say the number one thing they look at is the rigor of the course load. They would much rather see a student who took a rigorous, aggressive course load that really prepares them for college level work with a lower GPA than a student that has a higher GPA, but they took a lot of fluff classes. So it really is to your advantage to take those college prep, the more challenging courses, because that's definitely going to help you not only in getting admitted, but doing well as a freshman at a college campus. Next, they're going to look at SAT, ACT scores, your GPA, the essay that your student is going to write. Parents, listen closely. do not write your student's essay. College admissions counselors tell us all the time, we can tell that mom or dad or some adult wrote this essay. They also will most likely run it through a service like Turnitin to look for plagiarism or content that was lifted from other sources. So make sure it's an original essay from your student. And then they're going to look at those other, interests, volunteer, community service, their teacher and counselor recommendations. And again, for those extracurriculars, the focus really being on quality over quantity. And, how does this relate to my career goal, my major that I'm going to be studying while I'm at the campus? So, no, this is what those admissions counselors are looking for. Other things admissions counselors are going to look for, they're going to look at your student social media to make sure there's nothing on there that you don't want the admissions office to see. Another Harvard story for you. So last year, Harvard rescinded admission to 12 students for content that they posted in a private chat room on Facebook. So even if you think it's private, it's not available to everyone, somebody out there is going to be jealous that you got admitted to Harvard and they're going to share that information. So make sure that you don't have anything on that student's social media that isn't, a positive reflection of them. Word of warning there. All right. Additionally, make sure that everything that you put on your application is honest. So, things happen. I have a daughter in high school, and she has on her record a note of truancy. So she has served many hours of detention for truancy. But that's because she's opted to choose to take part in some, student protests, which required her to miss school for that. So you just need to explain what's happened. So be very honest, be upfront, talk about why you made the choice to do what you did, or if it wasn't a good choice, how you're doing things differently, what that taught you and how you're going to learn from the experience. So just be honest about any of those things that might show up on your record that you don't necessarily think are positive. That should never, ever, ever deter you from applying to your dream school because, admissions counselors know they're young adults, they're still learning. So just be honest and upfront about those things. All right, so we've selected our school, we've gotten an idea of what the program is going to cost. This is done by the College Board. This is an average for cost of attendance at universities in the U.S. So you can see average cost at a 4-year in-state school has now surpassed $25,000 a year. Average cost for a private school has surpassed now $50,000 a year. So we continue to see the cost of education increase. The only thing faster in growth than healthcare is the cost of higher education. So we know that it's going to be important to really figure out how are we going to finance the next 4 or more years, depending on the major. All right, so what are we going to do? We are going to first apply to our college, our dream school. We're going to be accepted, and then we're going to go into the realm of financial aid. So this is what we're going to do. You're going to visit the FAO to talk to the FAA, determine the COA, and it's time to complete the FAFSA. As soon as you receive your SAR, you'll know your EFC, and the school will receive an ICER and send you an award letter. It happens just like that. So that might be your response at this point. Like, what is she talking about? This will all seem very simple to you in good short order here because it's really very straightforward. You're really going to visit that financial aid office, talk to a financial aid administrator to determine the cost of attendance, which will be done when you complete your FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. So let's look at how this process works and what type of aid you might see on an award letter. So the first step is completing your FAFSA. The official URL for the FAFSA is listed at the bottom of this screen. Extremely important to make sure you are on this site to do your FAFSA. If you, just do a Google search for FAFSA and that site ends in .com, .org, .edu, anything other than .gov, it's a scam site. And as you're typing in your information, your identity is being stolen. So make sure you're on the official FAFSA site because it's the first step in getting your federal financial aid, but it can be a real bummer if you end up on a scam site, which sadly happens frequently. All right, the types of aid that you could be awarded based on completion of your FAFSA: scholarships, grants, the Federal Work Study Program, Federal Direct Loans, Federal Perkins Loans, the Federal Direct Plus Loan, and then additional student loans such as the line of credit offered by Dupaco. All right, so when can I apply? You can apply as early as October 1st, a year prior to the school year that your student is going to be going off to college. You're going to submit that application online. There is a mail version, but if you are in any way possible, if it's possible for you to do it online, it's a much faster, smoother experience. You will complete the FAFSA on an annual basis. So you're going to do this process each year that your student is in school. So for their freshman year, sophomore year, junior, etc. And again, each year make sure that you're watching out for scams because they're very prevalent. You will need an FSA ID in order to complete your FAFSA. If those on the line have had students in previous years that went away to college, there was an old PIN number that's been replaced by the FSA ID. You'll actually apply for that at the same site where you're going to complete your FAFSA. It says it may take up to 3 days to receive your FSA ID. Honestly, I've never seen it take more than about 30 seconds. But if there's severe weather or extenuating circumstances like a power outage, it could take longer. So you don't want to wait until deadline to get your FSA ID. Get that taken care of right away so that you have it ready and available to go. If you have more than one student in college, you will need a separate FSA ID for each of your students in college. Once you have your FSA ID, here are the dates for which you can complete your FAFSA. So if you had a student who is starting school this academic year, they are going to start, August of 2018, you could have done your FAFSA as early as October 1st of last year. You also have till the end of that academic year to apply. The earlier you apply, the better. If you wait until the school year has started or the school year is already in full swing, while you may have been eligible for funds, those funds have already been awarded to other people, so you've sort of missed out. So you want to make sure and apply as early as you can. The reason we're using a prior year's income tax is so that you don't have to wait on that information in order to file your FAFSA. So for the current academic year, it's 2016 tax return information that's being used for that. That way you can get your information submitted as close to October 1st as possible. So you're thinking to yourself, well, they're going to base my financial aid award for the 2018-2019 academic year on my 2016 tax return. Wow, a lot has changed since I filed that tax return. If that is the case, you can appeal the information from your FAFSA. The reasons to appeal are listed here for you. Important to know, if you have to appeal the information that was submitted on your FAFSA, generally for financial aid offices, this is a manual process. So they're going to have on their website, a link to how to appeal my FAFSA results. Oftentimes there's a form that you're going to complete. They're going to request that you submit supporting documentation. So if you're appealing because you have a lot of medical bills, they're going to request copies of those medical bills. And then the financial aid office either has a counselor or a committee that will review your appeal and make a decision on it. I tell you all of this because if you do think you're going to have to appeal the information from your FAFSA, start early. You don't want your student to be arriving on campus and their financial aid still be in an appeal process. So if you do have any of these reasons that you're going to have to appeal, things have dramatically changed from the time you filed those taxes to when you're filing your FAFSA, start early for your appeal and find out right away from your financial aid office what that process is like. All right, if you didn't need an appeal, then this is what the process is going to look like. You're submitting that FAFSA online. It takes the Department of Education about 2 to 3 weeks to process it. Once that FAFSA is processed, your student is going to receive a student aid report. This is going to be a summary of everything that was input on the FAFSA. Very important to review this because, maybe you moved a decimal point one way, to the right or to the left too far. That can make a big difference. So make sure you review that summary that you receive back, that your student aid report reflects properly what should have been input. At the same time your student is receiving their student aid report, the financial aid office at the schools that you're considering will be receiving your results as well. That comes to them in the institutional student information record. You'll most commonly hear it referred to as the ISER. So they're receiving your results. When you complete your FAFSA, you can list up to 10 schools to receive your results. I highly recommend you narrow it down to less than 10. It can be extremely overwhelming to get information back from 10 universities. So try and pare it down to your top 3 to 5. If you absolutely have to go above that, you have the ability to do 10. But from experience, I know it can be a little overwhelming for students and families to see that much information come back. All right, so a good visual. You're going to complete the FAFSA. It gets submitted to the federal government. The student receives their SAR, the student aid report, at the same time the school receives their ISER. Then, based on the information that was received, the school is going to create an award letter and send that to your student. Important to note here, that award letter is going to the student. So parents, while it might be your information used to complete the FAFSA, the award will go to your student. So I've had families say, we applied and we never heard anything. And then they realized it had been in their student's inbox for weeks because it's not coming to the parents, it's going to the student. Sometimes the financial aid office will mail out via email to the student. Others will have a website that you're going to log into with a special PIN number that they've provided, and you can view your award online. So it just depends on the school, but very few, if any, will come to you in paper. And then at the same time, you're receiving that award, that's when you're really going to put them side by side. So we've applied, 4 universities have sent us award letters. We're going to review all of those and decide, which one we're going to accept. It's a big decision point. Again, we're sending that award letter to the student, and then you're going to review it. Some of the items are going to be, left for you to decide. So if there's an unmet need as far as what the financial aid office has been able to award to you, these are some of the items that you can consider to help pay that remaining balance. Do you have savings? Do you have a 529 plan? Are you going to borrow through home equity or look at a private or federal loan to pay that remaining unmet need? So let's look at what types of awards you're going to see on that award letter from the financial aid office. First and foremost, if they can give you any free money, that will be listed first on your award. So whether that's, government, state, school-based, they'll list all of the free money first because you don't have to repay this. Again, based on a variety of reasons. Please realize there are some grants from the federal government that you're required to meet certain criteria. For example, the TEACH grant. So if you're going to be an education major, you intend to be a teacher, you're awarded a TEACH grant, you're committing to teaching for a certain number of years in, maybe an underserved or low income area. If you don't do that, that grant then converts to a loan and has to be repaid. So you want to make sure that you look for any asterisks or small print so that you're aware if at some point that grant could become a loan. The other thing to know about grants and scholarships, are you willing to meet the requirements? So I have a friend, she went to the University of Tulsa for 4 years, free ride. She got everything covered because she was a viola player. And she played every president's reception, every graduation ceremony, every alumni who gave a lot of money, whose daughter was getting married. I mean, she played constantly. When she graduated school, she was very thankful to not have debt, but she put the viola down and did not play again for 10 years. So realize a scholarship is something that you're going to have some responsibility for in a lot of cases. So make sure you want to meet those requirements. Extremely important to know, is this scholarship renewable? So on your freshman award letter, you see a school scholarship for $1,500. You're like, woohoo, that's awesome. But if it's renewable and you meet whatever criteria they set for it to be renewed, meaning, you have to maintain a certain grade point average, or you have to, not drop any classes, whatever that criteria is, if you meet it and it's renewable, that $1,500 could really be $6,000 if you can renew it for your sophomore, junior, senior year. A little word of caution here. The financial aid office is going to beef up the freshman award letter because they want you to choose their school, so they pack as much as they can into the freshman award letter, and you may or may not see that the sophomore, junior, senior year. So you want to ask and find that out to make sure whether you're getting it just for this year or if you can get it for subsequent years. Scholarships and grants. Again, don't have to be repaid. These are the federal grants. So the Pell Grant for the 2018-2019 has already been announced. It's a little over $6,000. This is based on financial need, and that's determined by the Department of Education when you complete your FAFSA. So if your family fits the criteria when your FAFSA is completed, then you would be awarded a Pell Grant for up to this amount. The Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant, I hope no one on the line receives. This is only for students whose parents died in Iraq or Afghanistan. The Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, you'll hear that referred to as FSEOG. That can be anywhere from $100 to $4,000. That too is going to be based on financial need as determined when you completed your FAFSA. And then the TEACH grant, we talked about that a little bit earlier. That's the one that can convert to a loan if you don't meet their criteria. So these are all of the major federal grants your school or university may have additional grant monies that could be awarded. Next is not quite free money, but you don't have to repay it. So it's definitely something you want to consider. I would encourage anyone who is awarded work study money to take advantage of it. So this is going to be a job on campus, and it's really first come, first serve. So there'll be a list of jobs. You'll look to see what you might be interested in. You'll go talk to the professor or the department head, whoever is advertising for that position, to see if it's a good fit. The wonderful thing about work study is that A, you're going to get paid at least minimum wage, so it's a great part-time job, but they're going to work with your work schedule, or with your, school schedule. So while if you get a job off campus, they may say, oh, well, this semester we need you to be here from 1 to 4 p.m., and that's not going to work with your class schedule. So the beauty of work study is they're very flexible and can work around your schedule as it changes each semester. The other thing is, if you're able to get a job in your department where you're studying, you're going to get to meet all the professors, you're going to get to meet all of the visiting professors. If there are special relationships between that department and industry professionals that work in that area, it's a great networking opportunity. So I would highly encourage you, if you get awarded work study, to take advantage. Most of those jobs on campus are in the departments working with the professors and department heads. So a great opportunity, not only for a great job, but to meet a lot of people and get more information about your area of study. All right, the Perkins loan, low-cost loan. This is a great opportunity. It's a loan made in the student's name, and it's made through the school's financial aid office. It is going to be awarded to those with greater financial need as determined when they completed the FAFSA. The maximum annual amount is $5,500. The government is going to pay the interest on the loan for the student, not only while they're in school, but also for 9 months after they leave school. So really an interest-free loan for the entire time they're in school and for 9 months after they leave school. There's a standard repayment term of 10 years, no origination fee, and a fixed rate of 5%. So an amazing deal for students who are awarded the Perkins loan. Not all schools participate in the Perkins loan program, but if your school does participate and you're awarded one, very affordable, low-cost loan with a nice benefit of having the government pay the interest for you. Next is going to be the direct loan. So if I were the daughter of Bill Gates and Bill Gates went online and filled out the FAFSA, I could get the direct loan. The direct loan is not based on financial need, household income. The criteria is that I complete my FAFSA and a few other requirements, but your household income is not part of that decision process. If Bill got crazy and went wild on the stock market and lost all of our money, I still could get the direct loan because, again, not based on household income. It's eligible for everyone who's done the FAFSA. Just like the Perkins loan, a really nice interest rate. Currently, until June 30th, it's a fixed rate of 4.45%. It's been announced on July 1st that it's going to increase to 5.045%, and there is a small origination fee. Just like the Perkins, you get a 10-year repayment period, and there's a 6-month grace period when the student leaves school in which they're not going to be required to make a payment either. If, as I mentioned, Bill loses all of our money on the stock market, then the government, based on the results from the FAFSA, may pay some of the interest on my direct loan as well. So you can see here on the right-hand side, a dependent student who is a freshman, I could borrow up to $5,500. If there's financial need, as determined when the FAFSA was completed, on the left, as a freshman, the government would subsidize the interest on up to $3,500 of my $5,500 loan. I don't get both. I only can get $5,500, but if there's financial need, the government will subsidize the interest on up to $3,500 of that. And you can see for sophomore, junior, senior year, those loan limits do increase. The independent student is going to be someone who's 24, active duty military, they have dependent children of their own, graduate professional student. So there are reasons that students can borrow at the independent student level, but most students who are going right from high school into college are only going to be able to borrow at that dependent student level. So a little bit of help, but not enough usually to get you to your full cost of attendance. So in our example, we looked at the cost of attendance for a 4-year public school being right at $25,000. Let's say I got $5,000 in scholarships. I take a $5,500 direct loan. That still leaves me with almost $10,000 that I need to come up with. So how am I going to cover that additional cost? You're first going to take advantage of your grant, scholarships, tuition discounting, direct loans, Perkins loans, all of those other items that we looked at to fill in that gap. The two most prevalent we'll talk about in this scenario. So let's say you've been admitted, you're going to be going to University of Success, you have your subsidized loan, your unsubsidized loan for the total of $5,500, you have your grant, your state scholarship, your work study. So you've been given $10,000 to help pay. Your cost of attendance is $20. So that means you have $10,000 that you're going to have to come up with. How are we going to do that? So the first thing we're going to do is look at what is fixed here. What do I have no opportunity to change? What do I have some flexibility to change? Maybe I need to appeal because maybe my financial circumstances have changed since I filled out the FAFSA, so that might be an avenue. You know, what other income do I have, such as 529? And then we'll also look at how tuition payment plans might be a help. So let's look at this. Fixed cost, tuition and fees. Every student is going to pay the same amount for tuition and fees. Those are fixed. You really can't negotiate those. So we know of that $20,000, $9,000 is going to be fixed. So that means $11,000 is flexible. What can we do to help bring down that cost? So the first thing we're going to do is look at where are the items where we can save money. So originally it was listed as $5,000 for my room. Maybe I decide instead of living in a dorm with just one roommate that I'm going to live in a dorm with 2 roommates, and that would take my rent cost down from $5,000 to $4,000. So I've saved $1,000 there. Food budget, we don't want your student eating ramen every day, so we're going to leave that alone so they can eat a decent, healthy diet. Books are an awesome way to save money on campus. You'll find when your student gets to school, there are oftentimes book exchanges. So they'll post on social media, hey, I took Gen Chem last semester, willing to trade for general biology books. They meet up on campus, exchange books, so you got 2 classes for the cost of 1 book. Many publishers now will make the book available in a digital format. So if you don't have to have the physical book, you could just buy an access code and use an e-reader, read the book on your phone in a digital format. So while the physical textbook may have been over $200, usually the access code to download it is around $79 or $80. So you can save significant money in the books area. Your personal expenses, maybe instead of Starbucks once a week, you go to Starbucks every other week. Look at ways to limit your personal expenses. And then transportation we've left alone. For financial aid purposes, transportation is not a big line item, so we don't have a lot of room there, wiggle room there. All right, so initially we had that budget of $20,000. How have we impacted this? So we know $9,000 we couldn't do anything about, but that $11,000, which was the flexible cost, we've now reduced to $8,750. So our total cost has gone from $20,000 down to $17,750. We now know we still have our $10,000. So that remaining need shrunk from $10,000 down to $7,750. What does that really mean to me? So that's $225 less a month. If you had to get a loan for that each year and you add interest, that $225 a month equates to $9,000. So anything you can save up front and not have to take a loan for will save you not only that initial money, but then all of that interest that could accrue on that debt. So really worthwhile to cut corners where you can while that student's in school. One of the best ways to help pay that remaining balance is a tuition payment plan. So we know from earlier we owed $7,750. With a tuition payment plan, that's going to allow you to split the bill into smaller payments payable over usually 10 months, so the academic year. So if I were able to swing it, I could divide that $7,750 by 10, pay $775 a month, and voila, I've gotten that interest-free and I've paid for that year without having to take a loan. You might be saying, oh, that sounds great, but there's no way I could pay $775 a month. That's okay. You can sign up in tuition payment plan for what you can afford to pay. So maybe you can only afford to pay each month $200, but that's $2,000 over the 10 months. And as we just looked at, if you don't have to pay interest on that $2,000, you're still significantly saving. So I highly recommend tuition payment plan if you're able to pay out of pocket as you go through the academic year. It's sometimes affectionately known as college on layaway because you're paying for it over the course of the 10 months. While there are no interest charges, there sometimes is an enrollment fee of $50 to $75, but compared with thousands of dollars in interest, still very worthwhile, and it doesn't allow you to pay, over the 10-month period. All right, so we've gotten our grants, scholarships, low-cost loans, work-study, tuition payment plan. Here are some of the other things you can use to pay the, remaining gap. Two things we highly discourage: credit cards and 401k. So look for options to pay those balances other than those two, because those have, serious negative impacts or lots and lots of interest. So what are the most common resources? The most common is going to be either a federal Direct Plus loan or a private education loan, such as the one offered by your credit union. If you want more information, you can click on the URL listed here or call the toll-free number for additional information, as well as being able to help with financing that final piece of the college education. Dupaco offers a wonderful financial literacy resource for students. So they can sign up right through the Dupaco website, and it's information such as the topics listed here, but it's all designed for that student who's deciding, which college is going to be best for me, to the college student who's getting ready to graduate and needs help with interviewing tips. So your student would fill out a profile about themselves to let the system know, where in the process they are, and then the system will actually recommend content. So for example, maybe your student clicks on an interactive module about credit cards. The system would then say, hey, I see you're interested in credit cards. Would you like to know how that might impact your credit score? Everything is interactive, video-based. Nothing takes more than a few minutes to go through, and it is smart technology. So as the system sees click patterns, what that student is interested in, it will recommend additional content. So very worthwhile. Just so you know, iGrad is used on hundreds of college campuses across the U.S. So your credit union has given your student access to it even before they get to campus. So do take advantage because it's a phenomenal resource. And I'll turn it back over to Jill to talk about your Learning Center.
Oh, thank you, Denise. We also have available on Dupaco's website, the Learning Center. It has several different categories that may be reflective upon what you're interested in learning more about. We certainly have our money makeovers, budgeting, we have credit score, education, identity theft, and different calculators so that you can go out and calculate different loan payments depending on what you're looking for. As a reminder, we also have some handouts from this presentation that you can download, and those will be available online at www.dupaco.com/explore-your-options. So we will now open up for questions and discussion. We'll see if there's any questions out there. Okay, we have one question. Do your direct loans require a cosigner? Okay, so potentially, so for the undergraduate loan, typically the student does not have credit established or income. So most likely 99% of the time, cosigners or co-borrowers would be required for that loan. Thank you for that question. We'll just see if there's any other questions that will come in. Okay, here's another one. How does it work if I am still paying off my student loans and then have kids going to college? And is that figured into the FAFSA? Denise?
Sadly, no. So the FAFSA is really information related to your income. There's no expense information collected on the FAFSA. So your repayment on your current student loans wouldn't be taken into consideration. However, if it's a significant amount, then that would be something that you could appeal to the financial aid office for them to take into consideration. But sadly, the FAFSA is strictly income-driven information, nothing related to expenses.
Thank you. We'll just see if there's any other questions out there. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you so much, Denise. We would like to thank all of you again for attending this webinar. We hope this information will help you ease the stress of preparing and paying for college. And as we mentioned earlier, you will all be able to find the recorded session on Dupaco's website in the next couple of days. Thanks so much and have a great day.